Hey, let's start the show.
For Thursday, June 15th, 2017. Welcome to This Is Only a Test, the official podcast of Tested.com. Hello and welcome into This Is Only a Test. I'm your current host, Kishore Hari. We'll see where we end up at the end of the podcast.
We're going to play musical chairs and rotate. Yeah.
Well, I might just get fired. I think I might get survivored off this podcast. Norm is still away. He's in London, hopefully out of the bathroom where he recorded the ads last week.
He's technically in England. He's not in London proper.
Oh, okay.
I'm saying if you're in London, you're like all excited going looking for him, you're not going to be successful.
If he's in England, it's all proper.
Where's Norm is not a successful game in London.
That's right.
Let's welcome in our co-host this week, Jeremy Williams, as always.
Greetings and salutations.
And we have a new friend.
A new one.
Hello, Zach.
Hello.
This is Zach Radding, ladies and gentlemen. He's a friend of mine, a friend of the show, actually. We met through the show, I don't know, a year or two ago.
Yeah.
And he's a man of many talents, and he's also got a lot of interesting things to say. Zach is an electrical engineer by trade.
Yeah.
But he has trained himself to become many other types of engineers. Can we talk about...
You can talk about whatever you want.
Because I don't know, you might be sensitive about revealing some of your tricks. But when
you, Jeremy, I'll reveal all my tricks.
This is not just for me. This is for everybody.
Oh,
this
wait,
is for
there's
the
other
world.
people listening. Yes, all right.
Wait, he plugs it into the wall socket.
When I first met you, you showed me something that you had made that was like a puzzle room that you hold in your hand. And It was a puzzle chip. It was a little tiny circuit board.
Yeah. 1 inch by 1 inch with a single chip.
Yes, a single chip, like no components on it except for a single chip.
And it's like a resistor and minimal components. Yes.
But tell me the things that you made this that you coaxed out of this. What senses did you coax out of this?
Okay, so
this
a little background. The puzzle. So there's a puzzle conference that happens every, I want to say, 2 years. It's a tribute to a long-standing puzzler.
Martin Gardner?
Martin Gardner, exactly.
Famous mathematician.
Yeah. So this was part of a gift exchange. Mm-hmm. You exchange something that you've created with 400 other attendees. So I needed to build something that, I felt proud to give to all these really great puzzlers and magicians and scientists and whatnot. So I designed this little puzzle, and there's all kinds of sort of bizarre little tricks that you can do in electronics to kind of coax more out of, minimal hardware. And people have been doing it for years. I mean, from Atari to, every little device that you come across, there's some trick, some engineers figured out something clever to do. So I sort of combined all of these different things that I've learned over the years into one little puzzle. So, the basic sort of input was capacitive touch. And there's some tricks as far as getting capacitive touch out of a chip that doesn't normally support capacitive touch. So you do some... you have a pin and you modulate it and you look for changes in frequency caused by you touching it. And so you kind of get that for free. And then
That's different from just shocking somebody with the board.
Slightly different, though. If you lick it, maybe. That another feature. That's maybe version 2. But no, so it's like you do that. You do temperature. You can do... you can actually transmit radio. I'm sure the FCC won't love it, but it's kind of like the old Mr. Microphone. You hold it next to your radio and you can get some sounds out of that. There's all these different things, and then use a LED as both an actual LED, but also a light sensor. There's some tricks you can do with that. So it kind of combined all these things, turned it into a puzzle. And, I need to make it cheap, so I didn't want to add a lot of components. Yeah. So put it all together and, made a sort of a puzzle room, as you suggested.
It also sensed the temperature to some degree. Like it could sense slight fluctuations. Actually, if you did a big fluctuation, you could detect that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you actually had to stick it in a refrigerator as one of the puzzles, and it would actually give you clues through Morse code through the one LED.
What?
I mean, it's a crazy little thing.
No, that's the trick, is that it doesn't even tell you how it's communicating with you. It just starts to blink at you.
You have to figure it out.
And you're like, okay, that must be Morse code. Let me go online and find a Morse code translator. And then it starts to give you instructions or really clues.
Yeah,
it's not even direct instructions.
Yeah.
And then you start to decipher what you're supposed to do with it. And then if you like put it under a light or put it in the refrigerator for a while, it blinks a different code at you. It's absolutely genius. And it costs what to make?
$2.
I mean,
is this like on the internet somewhere that we can?
You should totally open source that.
I
or
probably
like,
should. Yeah.
Is there a picture of it somewhere?
Actually,
We'll put it in the show notes.
Oh yeah, we'll find one. I'm sure it's out there.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So
that's how we sort of bonded.
You bonded over a puzzle that you had to figure out how to put in the refrigerator.
Well, initially over cars. But then yes,
fair enough.
He's also into electric vehicles. Has worked on electric vehicles.
I've built some electric vehicles.
And for our tested fans here, they probably know Zach from working on a few projects that have showed up on the site.
Maybe, yeah. So like I touch a lot of things in the Bay Area that get developed here. Usually some esoteric problem or it's just early prototype. So, the one-wheel skateboard, I know you guys talk a lot about that. I did kind of an early prototype of their battery. I've done some quadcopter stuff with 3D robotics. Trying to think of other stuff that you guys would know.
There's that Captain Kirk chair next door.
I helped. Yeah. That was actually...
He did come in and help diagnose a problem with that. Yeah. Absolutely. He has some pretty cool tools in his toolbox.
The nice thing about kind of taking your passion for building things and turning it into a business, you have an excuse to buy lots of cool tools. Yeah, so right. I have no problem being like, oh, look, there's something new and cool. I should own that. That will make my job better. So I collect cool tools.
Awesome. Well, it's great to have you here.
Well, thank you.
And a perfect fit to have a listener of the podcast on the podcast.
You too can become on the podcast. No,
that's not true. You're not welcome here. But let's dive into it. We got some pop culture news. So I wanted to follow up on a story a couple weeks ago. I know it was out last week, but I wanted to ask this. So, Jeremy, did you dress up as Wonder Woman and go to a screening, as we agreed upon 2 weeks ago?
You mean to the all-female screenings?
Yeah. Did you
manage? No. That was never my plan. I was offering that to you as a solution.
I missed my window.
But we didn't talk about it last week because our two guests last week had not seen the film.
Zach, have you seen Wonder Woman?
I have.
Oh, yes. Good.
We've all seen it.
I assume you've seen it.
And there's a spoiler cast now up on the site from Still Entitled this week.
Which I highly recommend, actually, because Danica is on that, and she gives an excellent perspective.
She's a super fan, clearly.
Yeah, she has been a fan of Wonder Woman for the longest time. Perfect guest for that podcast. And actually has a lot to say about Wonder Woman lore. I suspect you and Danica are not going to be allowed to talk about Wonder Woman. Wow. I have a strong suspicion that you didn't love this film.
I didn't love it, but she would welcome my opinions. I'm sure of it.
I don't know about this one.
I don't know.
I don't think so.
And I was totally on board with the movie. We're not going to go into spoilers. Are we going to go into spoilers?
No, I don't think we need to go into spoilers. I think this is general thoughts on it.
The takeaway is I was 100% on board for the first act and a half, I feel like. I feel like the whole audience was, especially the first portion in the Amazon.
And Themyscira is beautiful.
Themyscira?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Loved it. It was an origin story, and it hit all the right marks. I was on board right up until No Man's Land. When Wonder Woman climbs the ladder and walks out in there, I felt like the whole audience was like ready to cheer, like throw their arms up, and 5 people did because that's all that it warranted.
Maybe you were on the wrong theater.
I don't know. I mean, we all saw the same film. I just felt like she climbed up there, and suddenly the shot turned cheesy. And the shot of her having risen, walking on the battlefield in slow motion, it just felt like it just didn't evoke the right feeling. I felt like the effects were not.
This move doesn't do it for you?
It was
deflecting bullets like that?
No. When she got into battle, it got better. But the slow-mo shot of when she finally rose, it just fell apart.
But that was the big reveal. That was like you got the costume, you got the whole like she's powerful. Like it did it for me. I don't know.
Yeah, and it did it for Adam, and it worked for a lot of people. For whatever reason, it hit me as like, oh, that just felt flat.
I really liked even though we saw it in the trailer. I thought the armor was really beautiful.
Oh, I did too.
And, because it was, like, worn, like it was rough around the edges and stuff. It wasn't sort of like the pristine Wonder Woman outfits that we've seen in the past, like the Linda Carter kind of, every, like, hem and stuff. So I liked the battle scars on it.
Yeah.
And when you compare how Gal Gadot,
according to Danica.
When you compare how she's portrayed by the camera, compared to somebody like Scarlett Johansson, as they talked about in Still Entitled. Lots of progress. Love that, that did not affect my enjoyment whatsoever. If anything, it improved it because I think it's just more compelling that way. But I just felt like I mean, and the end action scene, that stuff just didn't work quite as well for me. The dialogue was good.
Zach?
I loved it. I have a 12-year-old daughter. This was kind of her first superhero movie that she really got into. And she's like, she's seen some of the other ones and she's kind of like, not really. But like Wonder Woman was good. And, for me, I was like, yeah, bring it. I watched the old show and
the TV show?
Yeah. And, it was probably in reruns when I saw it even then. But yeah, I totally dug it. I thought it was great. And it just, seeing anytime that they do a good, comic book movie, and I feel like those scenes that you're talking about that maybe felt a little flat, to me, that's, the surreal, the that slow motion, whatever, that is kind of that capture of that comic book feel to me.
It felt like the TV show. Like that's, and I didn't want to go back to the TV show. I wanted the big budget DC action film. And I felt like that it just didn't look expensive. It seemed like the set and the effects were, restricted there, and I just wanted more. Yes.
I felt like it was very period appropriate.
Period appropriate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is what, I mean, this is a period movie for all intents and purposes. So I think it gets compared a lot to the first Captain America movie, and I think it compares very favorably to that in that way. I think this is not the best comic book movie by a lot of measures. I think like Winter Soldier has a better, more nuanced arc to it. But holy cow, DC's movies have been terrible.
Yeah.
So like this
is so much better.
This is stepping into a landscape that had such low expectations
I think
that it blew it away.
I don't think that everyone in the world knows that DC and Marvel are different.
Really?
I don't
Even
think...
if you didn't see Suicide Squad, I think you could taste how bad that movie was.
No, but I think kids go to see these films knowing the Marvel films, and they're just like, oh, this is another superhero movie. And they don't expect it to be any different. And honestly, their standards aren't as high as my 43-year-old brain is.
But your standards are like, she didn't destroy a city in, so you look at some of these big budget like shots where they're just these epic, explosions and buildings crashing and whatnot. So we've kind of almost become numb to just like the small story, the really focused, when she's running on that battlefield, like it felt personal as opposed to like this just monster, where there's like, faceless masses being, killed as buildings fall on them. This felt like, okay, she's fighting the enemy. And I thought that was really cool.
I thought it was very unapologetic in that way, too.
Absolutely.
Like, there's a lot of superhero movies that are like the angst of the superhero grappling with, like, their role. I feel like Wonder Woman did not struggle with her being Wonder Woman.
No, she was not angsty at all.
About that for 1 second, and that I found that refreshing.
Yeah.
If there's a sequel, when there's a sequel, what do you want? Because I felt like this is the part of the spoiler cast that Adam, Danica, and Norm totally got wrong.
Do you want something specific?
Yeah, they got to go back to Themyscira.
Well, they mentioned that.
And do a whole movie there. Yeah, well, okay, maybe Norm.
A whole movie there.
Yeah, I think it should be about. I think there should be a movie about a rebellion against Hippolyta. Partially due to the death of. Oh wait, we're not in Spoilerland. I think there should be a rebellion on that island. And I think the character the villain I want to see is Cheetah, who's Wonder Woman's, I think, best enemy, emerge and have a story being told on that island where Wonder Woman has to return to Themyscira, where she's a little bit of an outcast now. I think that would be good. No one is with me. Not one person in this room is with me.
Sure, I'm going
to
just give you
Creepy
my
Head
vote.
Is all with you right there.
I'm not qualified to have an opinion. You have my vote. That's fine. I'll vote for what you want.
Wow, that was incredibly enthusiastic vote right there. I think it's I've only seen it once. I'm definitely going to go back and see it multiple times. I think this is a worthy movie.
Yeah.
Last Fight.
I know they kind of poo-pooed doing World War II, but I could use more. Like
really?
Yeah. Like look,
beating up on Nazis.
They got to go to modern day, don't you? I mean, because
they're going to with Justice League,
right? But in this movie begins and ends in modern day, and I just feel like this is the flashback film, and now they've got to continue with the current timeline so that you don't know that she survives or not.
Fair enough.
No, there's never going to be any risk of that. Did you like
Really?
If the God of War can't take her out,
No.
who's going to do it?
Yeah, exactly. Like the
I mean,
largest
no
box
spoiler.
office open ever, I think, is the clue that Wonder Woman's never going to die in these movies.
Fair enough.
All right. We got a new trailer for a comic book movie. Black Panther trailer came out during the NBA Finals.
It looks good.
Yeah, looks solid.
I think I would say it mostly looked great to me. I thought like the cast and everything, the dialogue, the intrigue that's really being played out here seems great. I felt like a little of the action didn't look great on my screen.
Well, at first,
on TV.
I thought it was going to be a Netflix. Like, I didn't realize it was a movie. Like, it took me a few beats. I'm like, oh, wait, no, this is a movie. This isn't a 12-part Netflix show.
He was introduced in, what was Civil War?
Yes,
Yeah.
And that's the only movie he's been in so far, right?
that's right.
Yeah. I mean, it looks great. I mean, I don't know anything about the storyline. Is the land that was in Africa all the time, is that a real thing from the comics?
Yeah. So Wakanda is this, fictional country that is technologically superior, but is very xenophobic. They don't let outsiders, and they store the vibranium that Captain America's shield is made from, and that Ultron in Avengers 2 ends up stealing. We got a sneak peek of the villain, Dr. Claw, in there, played by Andy Serkis. By the way,
I was going to say Dr. Claw.
Oh, I didn't catch
maybe
that.
he's not a doctor. Maybe he didn't finish his doctorate.
That's Inspector Gadget. That's
Yeah.
Dr. Claw. Like,
It's Ulysses Claw is his name in the.
it is, yeah. He
That's
pets
funny.
the cat. That's Dr. Claw.
Yeah, that's right. How about the reunion of Gollum and Bilbo in that scene?
Dude, you're blowing my mind.
What?
Martin Freeman and Andy Serkis sitting next to each other
Nope.
in that trailer.
Totally missed that.
Come on.
Didn't pick that up either.
That was my favorite little of that trailer. I think it looks great.
How is he bulletproof?
Who?
Suit.
Vibranium.
Black Panther. He wears that too?
Yeah.
Yeah, he wears vibranium in his suit, and the idea is vibranium absorbs any sort of kinetic energy.
Apparently, you can mix it with spandex. And
Yeah,
it's-
exactly.
Alright.
Yeah, so he got shot at in Civil War from like a helicopter, and he just like stares at it as they're shooting at him. And so, yeah, that's the idea.
Okay.
He has vibranium claws that extend and retract and stuff. Vibranium.
solves all your problems.
Better than ball bearings.
One other pop culture story before we dive into E3 and a whole sort of tech news. And it's about IKEA.
Oh, God, I hope you read this story. 'Cause I posted it thinking it was a good headline. It's IKEA to learn from space journey to Mars.
So I only briefly looked at this, but there is a setup. I forget where it is. It's out in a desert somewhere.
Yeah, well, they've used it before.
They've used it, to essentially study what traveling to Mars would look like by enclosing, quote unquote, astronauts, travelers to Mars, in a small space and seeing how they would work together. It's really a human factor study, like understanding how people get along, like everything from like, hey, how smelly will it get in there? Like we're doing that experiment right now here in this podcast
Yeah.
room.
And it's just 2 hours. and they are in here for a week.
Yes, but can you imagine being in a room with, what is it, 8 other people for a week about the size of this podcast
Dude, I would,
room?
honestly, I would sign up for this in a heartbeat.
What?
Yes. I think this sounds awesome. I mean, not like I would think this is going to be fun, but just to have experienced that, to come out of that chamber after a week.
No,
I think it might change you permanently.
Yes.
Hey,
yes.
I need it.
I think there's permanent damage that will happen from this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it would become a life experience, and I would love to, because it's the closest I'm going to get to Mars. And I would love to.
I don't think Mars is
experience
just
that.
about being in captivity with just people. I'm going out on a limb. Like there's space and other things involved.
I mean, I get you, but it's the framing of this experiment is that this is what it would, you have to imagine that the reason you're doing this is because you're on a ship to Mars or living on a pod on Mars. And if you get into that fantasy, you role play it. I would role play it.
I mean, it would be fun for a few hours. I'd sign up for that.
I don't know. Like, I love my family, but I need my space from them. And
Yeah.
they're my family, so I'm already kind of invested in them.
Yeah.
So that's a bad sign that I would survive well in this thing. But we should get to the IKEA part.
Yes.
So IKEA wanted to get in here because small space living, I guess, and how to design sort of modular furniture.
Flat pack.
Yeah. That I guess you only need one tool for the entire habitat too.
That's actually, I mean, there's something to be said about it. I mean, they've actually gone through like this super optimization process of I sell 1 million, pieces of furniture and I need to make them super simple that anybody like, bottom of the mechanical spectrum can assemble with, that one tool that I give you. That's actually not a bad way to design things.
It's not. And the idea of those pieces being modular and having multiple utility, I think IKEA is really working on that. So it's fun to make a joke about it, but I agree. It's totally, it makes perfect sense.
Just less cardboard and less particle board. That would be my only request.
Are you suggesting that the friends that I have that invite me over to help them build their IKEA furniture are just lazy?
Yes.
Yeah.
They could totally do it.
This is horrible.
You still have friends that invite you over to build their IKEA furniture?
Well, not recently, but I would say in recent history.
Wow.
Hey, Jeremy, what are you doing this weekend?
I know you're capable.
I don't know how to do it. Can you come help me?
Do you have that one tool? I somehow misplaced my 8,000 of those.
Yeah.
All right. We got to get on to the big news of the week.
Are we in tech news yet?
Yeah.
All right.
So Jeremy and Gunther just are back as of last night from E3, the most joyous place on the earth, right?
Yeah, well, it's across the town from Disneyland.
Well, can you describe E3 for our listeners who may not know about it?
E3 is the Electronic Entertainment Exposition. Has been happening since, I don't know, late 70s. It was a little offshoot from CES, and it became its own thing, late 90s. And it's the video game event of the year. It's where every video game ever is announced, more or less. I mean, that's what I tell my 10-year-old to sum it up.
Sort of.
Close.
Sort of.
Well, I mean, honestly, it's like where every big video game is announced.
Sure, but, they've started to fracture and do their own press conferences.
And I think,
too.
there's a whole talk to be had about that. I think that's the trend, hopefully, because E3 is still just this bombastic, just sensory overload that is completely unnecessary, especially given that everything is streamed. There's not a whole lot of reason to go there, which is in part why I haven't had any interest to go there since last time I was there, 2001, when I was covering it for PC Gamer magazine. Now with VR, I feel like that there's a reason to go again.
Right, because you have to experience it.
Because VR is not easily communicated via video or even discussions, although we do our best. But to actually go and put on the headset and see what the controls feel like and see what the environments feel like, see what the scale is like, if they got that right or wrong, you got to do that. You got to put the headset on. So that's why I went, Gunther and I flew down for the day, and we tried 6 VR games. Well, actually 6 meetings, it's like 8 VR games total. And that was jam-packed. I mean, and
we'll talk about that in the VR minute. Some of your experience with those games.
But because we got that many games and because we had appointments. If you don't have appointments, and most people don't have that liberty, you're standing in line for 2-3 hours to play a game.
Ugh.
And there were lines around every booth to do that.
I'm just thinking head lice. That's all I'm thinking. When you have that many people and VR headsets, no.
Well, it's and to be honest with you, VR is not like the great thing yet. It's still early days, as we keep saying. 1 million headsets sold on PSVR. It's not going to make the big booth.
Yeah.
So the big lines were for the new Mario game, of course. Call of Duty, the big ones. And there were some big announcements along in the 2D front.
Well, before we get do that, did you catch a friend of Tested, Will Smith's panel on VR? He moderated a panel.
No, I didn't. No,
I caught it on Twitch, and he was moderating a panel with the people from The Void, people from Accounting, that VR game. And 2 others, and I'm forgetting.
That sounds great.
now.
I would love to watch
it. Actually was pretty interesting, and I think it was recorded up on Twitch.
But whose Twitch?
Just on Twitch TV on their main channel.
Oh, how about that?
For their E3 coverage. It was on the Coliseum, I think is what it was called.
They are the official streaming partner of E3 this year.
Absolutely. So, but
big
to the announcements.
Big announcements. I mean, honestly, this probably isn't the podcast you tune in for this kind of thing, but it was some big ones. The Xbox One X was given a name. It was Scorpio. Now it has a name.
Xbox One, X1,
I know.
X1,
Horrible
2,
naming.
X3.
There's a great image that somebody posted online on Reddit, which is the box and the consoles. You got the Xbox and the Xbox box, and then or one Xbox box, and then you have the Xbox One, and then the Xbox One box, and then it gets harder and harder to say as you go down the list.
Dr. Zeus is happy somewhere about this choice.
Exactly. Anyway, the price is $499.
Too much?
This is
Extra expensive.
This is a problem, right? I mean, I forget what the last console to sell at $499 was, but I think it was a PlayStation. It must have been the PS3. And I don't think it sold that as well as people hoped.
So I think the big question to talk about here is I can't even call it this. What is the shorthand? What are people calling it?
Yeah, there needs to be like an Xbone for this, right? It's the Xbox. It's gonna be the Xbone X.
The double X.
Xbone X, double X. So with the double X, like this is really about approaching PC level specs. It's getting close to it.
Well, it's always been that way.
Yeah.
I mean, like
this
past generation.
It's a PC that you can't upgrade.
Yeah, that's what it feels like to me.
Well, I think the upgrade cycle is now PC-like, where they are just doing your upgrades for you every few years.
So it's a mid-gen console. I mean, because
I don't know if we'll see another generation.
Really?
I mean, they might just keep doing this. Why not? Why not? I mean, it's not like architecture is going to change dramatically, where they're going to get amazing new improvements. All of the interesting improvements are being made in user interface, and unfortunately Microsoft isn't doing any of that.
Right.
You know, I mean, at least PlayStation is experimenting with the VR space, and I would say it's successfully, and Nintendo is, killing it with their little cell phone processor.
Yeah. And unless they come up with some like exclusive content, which because their install base of the old hardware is so huge, they're not going to. I mean, the developers are going to be like, well, we can just downscale our graphics and, run on everything. What's going to be the incentive like to buy this? I mean, other than I want it to be even more pretty on my 4K TV. Like,
yeah, that's it.
That's it.
Is there, I'm trying to come up with an argument for this thing.
For the double X?
Yeah, for the double X. Is there an argument to be made about, taking PC level games and bringing them out to the living room? That's the only thing I could think of here.
You can't catch the PC. Like,
I know you can't.
That's the problem.
I know you can't.
I mean,
it's the greyhound chasing the rabbit. Like, it's just not going to happen.
But this is as close as we've been for a really long time.
Yeah. I mean, that's like what the Xbox One X has over the PlayStation 4 Pro is that it does native 4K. Like, that's it. So if you have a 120-inch screen and you're sitting close to it, you'll probably be able to tell the difference.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that this is going to matter to the point of an extra $100.
This is for the people that can't assemble their IKEA furniture. They want a PC in their living room, but they're like, instead of calling up Jeremy to make their PC, they buy a double X.
I really want the double X to come bundled with the Allen wrench. That'd be amazing.
Yeah. The problem is they also didn't announce any VR support at all, especially given the fact that they did last year. They announced Scorpio. They said it would have VR support, and everyone seemed okay. The Oculus is shipping with the Xbox One gamepad.
Yeah, there's a partnership.
It's going to have something interesting, but nothing.
I'm not surprised, actually. I mean, VR hasn't demonstrated enough to potentially warrant that.
I mean,
but I totally agree
clearly
with the gamepad.
You and the guys at Microsoft marketing have felt the same way. They're like,
right.
oh yeah,
I'm disappointed, but I'm not surprised.
Well, Phil Spencer, somebody later came out and said, yeah, it's going to support VR, but we just have nothing to show yet. They're ceding virtual reality to Sony completely at this point.
But what's support VR? It has an HDMI port that you can plug in a headset?
Yeah, they need a native headset with first-party games, or at least funded third-party games.
But it could support an Oculus. It's PC hardware inside. It's not like it doesn't support it's video out.
Yes.
So
yes, no, and that's how I'm sure it will work.
Right.
But they just have until they put their marketing muscle behind it and their funding. We're not going to get the great games to help push VR forward.
All right.
That's what I'm looking for. It's just more momentum.
So that was E3 Strike 1 on Microsoft. That's generally the reviews. Microsoft fail.
I mean, it's just a price point.
Yeah, but that's a big deal.
They could bring it down, and they will. They're going to have to. I mean, maybe not as soon as people want. What else? Sony is remaking Shadow of the Colossus, which is one of their great games that I have never played, so it's good for me. But people are really excited about that. Lots of big games. Anthem from BioWare is the next big thing.
That looked good.
Looks
really
amazing.
good.
It's a co-op online RPG, action RPG, and it was a good demo of like how it's going to feel to play with your friends. They didn't get too cheesy about it, but it looks a ton of fun. You're playing this open world where you're wearing these monstrous jetpacks that are also like robotic, exoskeletons.
Yes.
And you have different powers. It's like you're superheroes. Like there's hovering people and slamming into the ground.
I'll take it.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Spider-Man by Insomniac looks a ton of fun. Looks like the Batman games.
I was gonna say it's Arkham with
Yeah,
a different suit.
Arkham with Spidey.
Yeah.
Where is the pizza delivery, though, people?
Sorry, I'm getting notifications. I forgot to do not disturb. Beyond Good and Evil 2. Beyond Good and Evil is one of the all-time, it's like a Psychonauts style game. It was highly, highly rated well. Why is that still happening? It's so annoying.
Maybe you just quit
There.
Slack.
So they're making a second one. All they showed was a CG trailer, but it blew people away. And so if the game's anything like this, it's gonna be good. Super Mario Odyssey, very strange stuff going on with the Mario.
Yeah, can we talk about Mario for a little bit? Did you watch the Mario
I
stuff,
did.
Zach?
I did.
What was your initial impression?
I love Mario.
Mm-hmm.
Just give me Mario in all its forms. I mean, that's the thing with Nintendo. They've always we had the VR Boy. Come on, they push the limit. They're like
Virtual Boy.
Or Virtual Boy. Yeah. Sure, I'll take it. I'll try it.
Yeah.
We have to talk about the Mario Kart VR stuff that we saw
we'll get there,
later.
we'll get there.
Later,
Yeah,
that was crazy. But with Odyssey.
Mario is now possessing people. I think he's crossing a line. We're gonna have to get the Exorcist involved.
Are you sure it's not Wario in disguise?
Yes. I like
maybe,
your thinking.
Maybe.
It's definitely odd. This strikes me as a Super Mario Sunshine kind of outing where it's going to be a little different and you're going to wonder if you love it or not. And you're going to, I think, want to go back to the roots. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But like when we finally got Super Mario Galaxy after Sunshine, that was over the moon. I was ecstatic to get that the core platforming mechanics back and experimentation. This just seems very strange. So, I'm day one gonna buy it.
Yeah,
it's a Mario game.
But I don't, like other hosts on this panel, I don't own a Switch, so
Yet.
I don't know if that's gonna make me do it.
You can keep saying yet, and I'm still not forking over because it's expensive.
If you guys are at the stage in your life where you are just saying, look, Mario games, Zelda games, they're not for me. Fine, you're at that stage in life.
But I want to emphasize that you're paying that much money just for those two games, basically.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
And so we just finished a whole section where we talked about $500 is way too much for a console.
Yep.
And then we're talking about a Switch that when you add up all of the things that
by the
come
time
with
you buy two games and the console, you're there.
we're there. And then like the Joy-Con pricing is really out of control. And
you don't need an extra Joy-Con. What is the Switch? Is it 300?
I thought it was 350. No, maybe it's 300.
I think it's well worth it.
Okay. I mean, that's what everyone that's owned one has said. To
Zelda
me.
alone is worth it. I mean, Zelda, you can't even compare. Like as I said,
You're talking about a $350 game there.
No
basically.
game, yes. Because
what's the dollar per hour? Like, how much enjoyment have you got?
I don't think any game has the right to charge $60 anymore, except for Zelda. Like Zelda's now, if that's a $60 game, everybody's got to be 50, 40, 30.
I know, but our threshold is getting lowered because we pay 99 cents for an iPhone game, and that gives us, almost as much pleasure. So
that's not fair. Apple ruined people's expectations with mobile games.
I'm kind of fine blaming Apple for stuff. That's been my go-to on this podcast for a while.
We've got Apple, we got Microsoft. Maybe we can keep going.
Anything else from E3?
Oh, the new Metro game. I've never played the Metro games, but they look phenomenal. Like their engine tech is stunning. This new one looks amazing. Xbox One and Windows 10. I mean,
you want to talk about some of the other Nintendo things? We haven't talked about Metroid yet.
Yes, Metroid.
2 Metroids.
Yep.
So we have a Metroid Prime 4, which is coming out for the Switch, and we got a video of that, of the logo.
Yeah,
I was going to say, I thought it was just a bunch of
anything.
stills. Like, yeah.
No stills, just the logo. A video.
Yeah.
Great. I mean, that is marketing. But that's all people need.
Yeah.
People love
Yeah,
the Metroid
people
Prime.
lost their mind at that. Nintendo won E3 by putting up a logo for Metroid, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, I have nostalgia for Metroid. Like, that was my youth, right after Super Mario Brothers, it was Metroid. That was my second game on my NES, and, like, that feels good. Like, I want more Samus. I want more of that. But
Yeah.
I never got into, actually, the 3D Metroids.
I didn't either. For the GameCube.
Yeah,
was the
GameCube,
first
yeah,
one?
yeah.
I tried them, and I just couldn't get into them. I much prefer the 2D.
I think I tried them at a Best Buy. Like, that was my where I tried them. But
so, I don't know, but I'm always up for something new, and
Yeah.
maybe I'll try this. The other one is a Metroid Samus Returns, which is a 3DS title coming out later this year, which no one saw coming.
Yeah.
And this looks like old school 2D side scrolling. Like, Metroid is the name of a subgenre now, Metroidvania.
yeah.
So you're getting what you want.
Which is weird that you're getting kind of like, not that it's a AAA game, but it's like a high profile game on an old piece of hardware. Like,
Yeah.
that seems weird. I don't know. Like, maybe there's a strategy there, but I guess their install base is huge. So
Yeah, that's for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to highlight from
No.
E3? I have
think
two
so.
things.
I mean, we'll talk about. There's a lot of VR stuff. but
Yeah,
we'll
we're going to
get
talk
there.
about the
We'll get
VR
there.
stuff. There's two things I want to highlight. I thought the most interesting game I heard about was A Way Out, the mandatory co-op game that you're in prison and you have to break out. I think it's
from
EA.
the developer of Brothers, which is on Steam.
Yes.
Everyone should play.
Hazelight, I think, is the name of that company, right?
Okay, I don't know. Yeah, excellent. That looks a ton of fun. And it's like, who in their right mind would make a co-op only game? But thank you. Thank you.
I'm actually kind of excited about that.
Me
I
too.
mean, EA ate a lot of shit for their press conference at E3, but I thought this was really interesting. I haven't played a mandatory co-op game in forever.
Yeah. New mechanics, new things. Yes, sign me up.
And I thought it was a Prison Break game, and once you break out, game over. But no, like, that's just the beginning. You're out in the world trying to survive. It looks a lot of fun.
And then Neil deGrasse Tyson announced a game, and I'm just saying that because Neil deGrasse Tyson announced a game. It's on Kickstarter.
I didn't hear
with
about
some company. I don't think it looks very good.
What kind of game
They
is
don't
it?
have any sort of game shots. It's about space exploration. Shocking, I know. But there's a Kickstarter going for it.
I don't know.
And Neil deGrasse Tyson Skyped into
Neil
E3.
Kickstarter and game hasn't had a good reputation, so I don't know. Like,
Are you being sarcastic?
yeah, the sword fighting game. What was the? Wasn't it Neil Gaiman had that whole debacle? Yeah. They found out that sword fighting wasn't fun if it was realistic.
Oh, getting stabbed, not fun?
Yeah, well, I think it's just the mechanics are hard. It's actually hard to sword fight in real life.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Is there anything you heard, Zach, from E3 that you're excited about?
No.
Yeah.
No, really not. I mean, yeah, some VR stuff. I'm like, yeah, more, but nothing that was just like, I want to play that now. I mean, a lot of it's kind of rehashed, and I don't need another fill in the blank, volume 4. I want something different, and I haven't seen anything different in a long time.
I think there's a lot of indie stuff that probably goes under the radar that probably showcases around E3 that just gets covered up. So hopefully that'll sort of come to the surface over the next couple of weeks once the big game developers, it fades from view. One other game story that Zach brought to us. There's been a new record set, Jeremy.
No.
Yes, a perfect Miss Pac-Man score.
That hadn't been done before?
Oh, I'm sure it's been done by a human. This was done by an AI.
Wow. First Go and now Miss Pac-Man.
I know, well.
What's this AI that did this?
So there's a company that I think Microsoft bought not that long ago. They basically designed a neural net system to play Miss Pac-Man. And I think it's a great sort of application for AI because you have, there's a goal that's easily monitored. You can get that feedback loop of, did my score go up? So I can train my neural net really easily. And, it makes sense, these kind of games. And, it's real life just simplified. I mean, if we had a scorekeeping for driving, I'm sure our self-driving cars would be much better because they'd be able to kind of, score themselves. But this is a way that we can kind of learn how to build this software, and it's a cool thing. It's an achievable goal. So
First of all, the thought of a self-driving car thinking of driving as being a game is terrifying.
Oh, it's all a game. Come on,
Yeah,
Jeremy.
no. And I get you. It is legitimately terrifying, and I'm now scared.
There are ghosts chasing you, and you have to eat all the little pellets on the road.
You
Like,
don't watch those Grand Theft Auto movies, and
Yeah.
you're like, wow, my car could do that flip over the bridge? Maybe.
So literally, when Tesla gets in a wreck, it just gets a deduction in its score.
It does. Boo, boo, boo,
Wow,
boo.
that's terrifying.
Don't worry, I have 4 more lives as the car.
But second of all, as far as Miss Pac-Man goes, is it learning the patterns? Because that's how players do it. Like players just know the patterns of each level.
Well, so I mean, this gets in deep of like, what is a neural net actually doing?
Yeah.
Like, do we as humans really understand? I mean, it has to be getting some inherent knowledge about the game.
But is it just doing rote recitation of the patterns that it learns work, or as it progresses level by level, or is it actually just continually using logic to avoid and taking different paths? I wonder.
I don't know.
And would that path just not be the exact same path every time because the ghosts go in the same direction?
I think there's some randomness to it.
There aren't. I mean, there aren't in. I don't think so. I think that there are patterns you can learn.
It's just
to
straight
Pac-Man.
pattern recognition.
I'm pretty sure.
Okay. You know more about Miss Pac-Man than I do.
I mean, I know that's the case for Pac-Man because people memorize those patterns.
Don't we have Miss Pac-Man out there?
You could buy. No, I don't. Is that?
Isn't that Miss Pac-Man?
I thought that was Millipede.
Oh. No, what's the tabletop one
That's
out
what I
there?
mean, Millipede.
It is? Oh, okay.
But there were books you could buy with the Pac-Man patterns back in the day.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Well, I mean, I think they do follow some, algorithmic, patterns, but I don't know if they play those same patterns over and over. Like
they do.
Is there a random seed that once you flip the game on, it plays all the way through? Because then you could just be like, I just have a list of moves that always work.
That's what I'm saying. That's what you do.
Well, then this is a way less exciting story than I originally thought.
Well, unless the AI doesn't do that. Like if they actually do, I'd be curious. I'd be curious.
Yeah. Fair enough.
I'd be curious.
I think we need more research.
I think we're only a few years away from the E3 AI track where there's just no humans in the room and just AI is talking to each other. I'm really excited about you taking on, Missile Command next week or whatever it is.
But the voice synthesis won't be very good.
Oh yeah, well that's fine.
It doesn't need to be. It's Whopper, right? It's from War Games, right? From Missile Command.
Yeah. I don't know how many of the E3 conversations you watch. The emoting is not very high at those either.
That's rude. Come on, those guys are doing their best.
No, but I'm just saying it wasn't the most dynamic things you've ever seen.
I'm hoping the AI at least needs us to read for them.
They need an avatar,
exactly.
Right? They need the Go player. Yeah, exactly.
All right. We're going to fire through a bunch of other tech news stories. Alphabet finally sold off our favorite robot tormentors, Boston Dynamics.
Yeah, Norm submitted this story from afar, by the way. Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. We've known Boston Dynamics has been on the chopping block for a long time. I think the reports are Google's never been satisfied with any sort of tangible stuff that has come out of that company. And initially, we thought the acquisition was about talent acquisition for their growing robotics division. I guess they've reached whatever peak they want, and it's been sold to SoftBank.
Who's that?
It's basically a Japanese telecommunications company. And they talked about the potential of Boston Dynamics, which is the same phrase I've heard for, 8 years now, about the potential of these human. Did I say human?
Humans.
Did I go full Ferengi on this podcast?
Human. Yeah.
All right. I guess I'm just channeling the SoftBank culture of always looking for Latinum in the wrong places. This is this means Boston Dynamics still going forward.
I mean, I am a big fan of robots. Who's not, right? I mean, but really, these they've got kind of like two practical uses. Military and taking over the world. Like that's it. I don't see them as like I need a robotic dog that carries my stuff.
There's a huge industrial application, right?
Yeah, but robotic arms do a pretty good job. Like, I don't need walking. Like, walking is actually, unless I'm going through uneven terrain, unless I'm, and yes, I mean, there's core technology there, the feedback and sort of dealing with humans and sort of that soft, squishy whatever that they're really good at. But in a factory, I don't need that. Like, I need I need super fast moving things. I need to be able to do, high end processing like vision and those sorts of things. I don't see Boston Dynamics as like that's their main thing. They've created these cool, smart walking devices, but unless we're trying to like go through a forest, I don't see the real practical use there.
Yeah, that stabilization really has military applications right now.
There you go.
I mean, it is one of those research frontiers, though, that needs to be overcome to get to like a next iteration.
Well, I want it for my neck.
Yeah,
like that's what I want it for, is so that I can drive around. But that's not. I'm not there yet.
Yeah, fair enough. There are some people wondering if this is really when Andy Rubin left Google. He was the one that was sort of the cult of personality about like humanoid robots at Google. So this could just be sort of the vacuum of him leaving a little bit. So tear for Boston Dynamics, but also, now they're owned by a Japanese company, so shit might get real weird over there.
Bring it. more viral videos, right?
Let's talk about some other sort of failures. Zach brought up the fact that we have another Kickstarter hardware failure, which actually I think is an interesting conversation.
What is it?
So the sleep tracker, horrible name called Hello. They have their device, the sensor.
Again, a very not Googleable name.
Yeah, totally not Googleable.
You might recognize it as this like egg-shaped thing with like a nest
looks
kind
like a
of
ball
design.
of string.
Yeah.
Yep.
And again, the idea, I'm definitely somebody who has poor, sleep habits, and having the whole censored system to watch me sleep and to help me get better sleep, I'll sign up for that. But again, it's one of these companies that they come up with this great idea, they go through the process, they put it out on Kickstarter, they make a cool video, they raise some money, that raises them more money from the VC world. And then something happens, and they work on it for a long time, and it sort of gets pushed out, and then they burn through their runway, and now they're gone.
Do you see that as a failure? I mean, the way you're describing things, like that feels like how hardware companies have existed for a long time. Is there something different?
Well, so they typically don't use customers' money to develop. I mean, that's the big shift, right? So before it was, the founders, the initial investors, they're the ones who are putting in the money and they're taking the risk. And there's been this sort of shift, and I think there's not a lot of great communication with how much risk there is in developing hardware to that customer that's pre-ordering. And the problem is when you see the word order, I think of that as like Amazon. Like I press order, I get a thing. And when I say pre-order, it's just like, oh, that thing's going to be delayed a little bit. And whether it's Glowforge or, one of the other 1,000 different Kickstarters, my expectation as a consumer is I'm going to get a thing regardless of what happens in the background. The problem is, and I know this really well because what I do for a living is I touch a lot of early hardware and I make prototypes and I do these things for these companies. Hardware's really hard. And, it's easy to get a piece of hardware to do 90% of what they want it to do. So, when they make the claim of like, oh yeah, this is going to track your sleep and this is going to sense you and your breathing and your heartbeat and your all of these things, it's like, oh yeah, I can show that working 90% of the time. But for a product, it's got to work 100% of the time.
Or all like 98, 99, like somewhere up there.
Yeah. But I mean, that's like, it's got to... it's got to have all the certifications, it's got to be manufacturable, and it's got to be able to be produced for the price that I'm offering it for. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges. These companies, they're niche markets. They're only going to make a small number when you compare it to, an iPhone or whatever. But as a consumer, we're used to this pricing kind of threshold of, what comes with making 1 million of something or a few million of something. That brings the price way down. But these niche companies that are only making a few thousand of them in the initial run, well, it costs way more to make a few thousand than it does a few million of it when you divide it all up. So I think the expectation is, and the promise is, I'm going to sell you a $150 device. And, sure, I can put on Kickstarter and I can sell 1,000 of those. But then when it actually comes to making them, and they run through the numbers and they're not maybe the most experienced because it's a new company, and they go, oh, well, it actually costs $300 for me to even make them. Like that just doesn't work as a business. And sometimes it gets obfuscated in the process of design. You're like, oh, well, we'll cost it down at the end, or we'll, figure it out. And then they get to the end and they're like, oh, shoot, it's still $300, then it's no longer business. And I imagine that's what happened, because I've seen it happen. A lot of my customers, they come to me, we build that first one, it's really cool, and then by the time it gets to production or close to production, it fizzles out, or they go, yeah, we don't have a business there.
I don't think there's any excuse for this. I mean, they knew going into it the risks, that there's no minimum number you can require. I mean, you can require a minimum take on Kickstarter in terms of the amount that you raise, but
nobody can make something for that minimum. And if you just said I have a minimum of $10 million,
that is on the person running the Kickstarter. Absolutely, and that is 100% on them. They need to keep those numbers in line, and if they don't, that's their failing. And
yeah, but that's not a reliable resource. I'm just going to trust the people running these Kickstarters to do it right.
That's part of the game. I mean, if you're going to back a Kickstarter, that's the risk you're taking.
Well,
and Kickstarter is very clear about that. Like, if you do not receive your award or anything in return, Kickstarter is not liable. I wonder if there's not, going to be a insurance policy you can take out on the things that you back,
like travel insurance.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, but here's really the challenge that I see with this one too. They not only had Kickstarter, but then they also took pre-orders through like their website and sort of other places. And the second you're not on Kickstarter, I think, people that are on Kickstarter that understand it, or like, as consumers, I'm searching for that next cool thing. Yeah, I kind of get it. And I think, you and I are kind of a little bit more informed in that consumer realm. Like you've had Kickstarters, so you know that process. So you go, okay, yeah, there's some risk involved. But I think the buzzwords of like, Kickstarter and there's this cool thing, and it's just people kind of wander in on it. And it's like, I see Kickstarters on my Facebook feed, and I imagine so do most people. So, they may just click on it and go, oh, look, this thing I can order. And, there's not a true understanding. And nobody reads the fine print. I mean, that's just the nature of people.
Well, hold on now. I mean, most Kickstarters do succeed in fulfilling their
well, I don't know what the numbers are, but
it's got to be most.
Yeah,
and I think there's probably a small percentage that completely fail. And those are the ones that should get all the press, because we need to shine all the spotlight we can on those guys,
right,
because they are in the wrong, and people need to know that that's part of the risk that you take. But
I also don't know if I buy that this is a failure. I mean, they delivered product, and I think, just for this one. It may not be true for some of the other ones in this category. Like,
wait, did they deliver all of their fulfillments?
Yeah. They were in Target.
Then what's the problem? So they delivered the fulfillments and then it failed?
No, the company just folded.
There's a bunch of pre-orders, because they actually said in their release, like, can I get a refund? And they're like, if you ordered it from us, no.
So maybe there are some people that didn't get it.
Yeah.
Got it. But, and that sucks. But I also think, because of how much press like Kickstarters and others given, this has become an easy story to write. And I think there probably was a lot of hardware failures that just went under the radar because they weren't funded publicly.
Well, they never made it to market, so you never heard about them.
Yeah, you never heard about them. So I think we're just seeing them now because they're coming to market, quote unquote.
Well, part of the game is I need to announce my thing way earlier than I would normally to get press, to see if it's even a product. I mean, part of that whole Kickstarter game is, I'm not actually making enough money to produce the thing through Kickstarter. I mean, some products are that way. They're like they're sort of small enough, and the actual development time isn't huge. And yes, that whole cycle can happen on Kickstarter. And like you said, I think a lot of those succeed because you're not solving any real technological problem. You're just kind of combining technologies together. And yes, I can do that in my garage. But some of these ones that are really ambitious, that are like, okay, we need to use chipsets that are brand new, and I'm relying on these companies to, give me a new sensor or a new part, or, there's all these things that have to line up, especially when you're making more than just one of a thing. And they learn that there's like delays, and there's, problems with, first run of whatever it happens to be. There's problems all the way up the chain that, again, we never would have seen in the sort of the normal development cycle and the old school development cycle, but now it's in the public. So we totally see it.
And we love it. The only problem, and I'm telling you, in 99% of the cases, those problems are forgiven as long as there's good communication.
Wow.
And the pitfall that so many Kickstarter campaigns fall into is forgetting that,
right,
and not updating their backers on what's going on with the delays constantly. If they send regular updates and they stay in touch with their backers, with the people that funded their campaign, in 99% of the cases, everybody's cool. You know, I mean, Glowforge has offered refunds since day one of missing their initial deadline, and they're finally making good on their promises this year. Although that wasn't a Kickstarter.
I was gonna say, where's your Glowforge?
Yeah, well, it's actually shipping. Like,
Oh, you got notice that it's shipping?
I got notice that it's
Sweet.
shipping, so that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But yeah, it's all about communication. I just wish more people who have Kickstarters that have slipped would remember that.
All right, it's time for the lightning round of tech news, and we'll do some quick reactions from you. I'm gonna throw out a story. You let me know what you think about it real quick.
Oh my gosh.
Hulu debuted their live TV today. Here are the stats.
Okay.
$40 a month. Pretty good channel lineup comparatively to like Sling and YouTube TV. It's pretty comparable.
Okay.
They have the Turner channels, but they don't have Comedy Central or Discovery or AMC. Six profiles, 2 streams simultaneously. 50-hour DVR, cloud DVR.
What does that mean? Like anything I want? It just
You
gets saved in
anything you want gets saved to the cloud, but you have a 50-hour capacity.
Okay.
Which is totally just kind of a made up, because they have it all recorded anyways. It's just how many pointers do you get to your shows?
That's got to be a contractual issue, like with their providers.
No, this feels like a
with the
carry-on issue, like a hidden fees kind of thing.
Right, we can upgrade your DVR, if you pay an extra $10 a month or whatever it is.
$15 a month to upgrade to 200 hours of cloud DVR service.
I wonder about that. I wonder if it's not a licensing issue for them.
But so I don't know, again, I'm all about cord cutting. Like I'm a Roku, I'm a Netflix, Amazon, all those. This doesn't seem like a better deal than what I got from Comcast years ago before I cut my cables. Like for $40, I got all of the channels and more. And I still have to pay Comcast for my internet. At least that's what I'm doing. But it's like, I don't know what's good about that.
I totally agree. I mean, it's all about the interface. If they have a really solid UI that is a game changer, can't imagine it's true. I'm pretty disappointed in this. It's just too expensive.
Yeah.
All right, next. What the hell is happening at Uber? Like, what the hell? What?
You were
Hot
supposed to be
mess.
the chosen one.
What?
Yeah, it's a mess.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay. Uber.
We all agree. It's a mess.
Like, Jesus. AirPods can link to your Apple TV.
Yeah, so that's funny. I don't know. You're an AirPod user, or is that just normal?
No, I don't have them. I've used them. I've borrowed a friend's.
All right. Yeah, I wonder. I mean, it's interesting because often I'm going to watch TV and I'd like to do it without annoying everybody else. And now there's a very easy way to do that.
This is no different than stereo headphones that have wireless headphones that have existed.
Yeah, but you don't have those.
Yeah.
You have the AirPods. Suddenly you have this new capability.
Roku's can hook up Bluetooth too.
Can they?
To any Bluetooth.
Yeah,
I know
the
my Roku
high-end
has
ones.
a network or a phone jack on its remote that I use.
Yeah, they do that too.
Yeah, that's handy. But
And now you can listen through the app on your phone.
yeah.
What do you mean a phone jack? Like
There's
an RJ11 jack?
No.
No.
A 1/8"
Headphone jack.
Headphone. Sorry.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I'm sorry.
It's got a modem in it.
That's right. There's no Ethernet port on there, but no, it's just an audio jack.
Okay.
This is fine. The problem isn't with the headphones with Apple TV. It's the Apple TV itself.
Oh, what's wrong with Apple TV?
Good luck. I just think the interface isn't there. The thawing with Amazon is the first breakthrough of different content providers coming through, but I think it's still walled garden. There isn't enough stuff on the Apple TV yet. I think that remote sucks.
The remote is miserable.
All you got to do is 3D print an enclosure for it. That's the deal.
Right, because everybody's going to do that.
Don't they?
What the?
Don't they all have 3D printers?
Give me a break.
Yeah, you just 3D print it so you know which way's up and you're set. Put a sticker on the bottom.
I know all of these things can be done.
It's the Siri.
irritating.
That's the one place I use Siri. Is the voice search. You just say Avengers and it brings up wherever Avengers is.
All those other boxes do that too, at this point. And finally, this is podcast inside game. Apple is finally going to release real metrics for podcast creators.
This is great.
This is actually, I think, tremendous news. As somebody that has a couple podcasts, I'm like, all the information you usually get is how many people downloaded it, which means nothing because you don't know if they actually listen to it until you get the hate tweets at you, which is a sign of somebody
And it automatically, everybody automatically downloads their podcast.
Yeah.
So
this is literally like 10 years overdue.
It's so far overdue.
I mean,
it's amazing.
Seriously, iTunes has been doing podcasts for a long time. And wow, thank God.
So this will give some information of how long people are listening, where they're listening, some other metrics that are interesting in terms of what else they like in sort of the universe.
It's huge.
I think this is a real changer in that marketplace. And to put it into context, I saw this stat. So I like sports. I watch this channel called ESPN from time to time. Their most popular non-live sports show is this show called Pardon the Interruption. It's this kind of back and forth yelling show. There's about 1 million people that watch that a day. The top rated sports podcasts get 1.5 million listens for their episodes. And those are usually about like 3 times a week. So it's not quite apples to apples,
it's close,
but it's pretty close. So the marketplace here is pretty massive when we're talking about things. And so if those people are getting shitty metrics too, this is a pretty big changer. Even for us, we're going to know so much more about you soon.
Not really.
We know what you're wearing and as you listen to this podcast.
Yeah. We know it's no pants. Come on. We know that from demographic surveys.
We hope.
Do we have a message from Norm?
Support for this week's episode of This Is Only a Test comes from Proper Cloth. We all know that finding a dress shirt that fits is hard. Whether the collar is too tight or the sleeves are too long, something always seems to be off. Luckily, ordering a custom fit shirt has never been easier, thanks to Proper Cloth. At propercloth.com, you can easily create a custom shirt size in seconds just by answering 10 easy questions. It's a foolproof process. You don't even need measuring tape. Plus, Proper Cloth has over 500 fabric styles to choose from, including premium Italian and Japanese fabrics, as well as business and casual styles, all starting at just $85. And best of all, Proper Cloth guarantees a perfect fit, meaning that if somehow your shirt doesn't fit perfectly, well, they'll remake it for free. No wonder Proper Cloth is the highest rated custom shirt maker on Google. It's truly the future of shirts. So stop wearing shirts that don't fit and start looking your best with a custom fitted shirt. Go to propercloth.com/test today and use the gift code TEST, T-E-S-T, to save $20 on your first shirt. Check them out and thank them for sponsoring this week's episode. Now back to the show.
Now it's time for a moment of science. We have 3 quick stories, but first, let's talk about what happened last week. Jeremy brought up a story about gravitational lensing.
Oh, yeah.
About light bending around a star and reaching a telescope here, and what that meant. And Jeremy nailed it.
I'm basically a scientist.
That was awesome. So, like, the idea of this is we've used this technique of light bending around objects and understanding that deflection to understand all sorts of things about the where that light originated from, the stars that it came from. Typically, we've had to use galaxies as a big source of gravity for that light bending. What was unique about this story is that it was just across a single star.
A big star.
Yeah, and it was a dwarf star, and we were able to understand its mass and size.
Dwarf sounds small.
No, but it's a big star.
Okay. Wow. I didn't know the part about galaxies.
Yeah.
That's good context.
I mean, gravitational lensing made it into Interstellar. That's how hip gravitational lensing is.
Hot damn.
Yeah.
All
right.
That's cool.
3 quick stories this week. I always talk about CRISPR.
Yay.
This is the, I think it's now being called molecular scissors. It's basically the cut and paste technique of being able to edit a specific genome. It's revolutionized biology. We've seen such adoption of this. And if you're in the Bay Area, on Monday, you can see me talk with one of the originators of this technique, Jennifer Doudna, on stage at City Arts and Lectures. You're welcome. promo. That was
A freebie.
That was a freebie there. But there was a study that came out a couple weeks ago saying that the edits, the actual cut part, is not as precise as other studies would lead you to believe. And this is sort of blown up in the world because if you have scissors, but they don't cut where you think they cut, that's a pretty big problem. The studies come under significant fire, including from Jennifer Doudna, who I'm interviewing next Monday, citing problems with their statistical analysis. This was done in mice, and there was a lot of concern on how they were reproduced. And there is some concern over how it was peer-reviewed as well. But this study warrants some attention in the sense that if there's more studies that come out and say this technique isn't as accurate as we think, that could collapse a whole industry, if we will.
So there's some growing pains, but this new technology, they're figuring it out.
I mean, it's just like the hardware startup conversation. No,
it's pretty much the same.
It's pretty much the same exact thing. Two other quick stories. Let's talk about my most hated animal on this planet. The deadliest animal on this planet, the mosquito.
Wow, is that true?
Mosquitoes kill more humans than any other
How about that?
animal. I think they kill 100,000 humans a year, maybe more than
I
that.
hate mosquitoes.
Everyone hates mosquitoes. No one's like, yeah, they're my friends.
My kids, dude. My kids do. When I
No,
when I
wrong.
go up to kill a mosquito, they almost start to cry. They love animals so much.
You need to move. You need to move somewhere
Or-
that's
or
going to
find-
give them a rougher education
Or
about
find
stuff.
different children.
Yes, like totally. That's incorrect.
It's adorable, but I have to tell them that no, mosquitoes must die. I every time I'm just like, no, there's a line here we draw. We let the spiders go. We free them into
Yes,
to the world.
Spiders are great. They get a bad rap in Hollywood,
We
but
murder the mosquitoes.
always.
You know, there were no mosquitoes on Hawaii until the white man came on their ships and brought the mosquitoes along with snakes. But there actually are no snakes.
As The Rock says, you're welcome.
Yeah, right.
Well, a new technique in terms of killing mosquitoes. I'm allergic to mosquitoes. That's why I hate them. But scientists have found a fungus that can actually hit a specific species of mosquito and penetrate through their exoskeleton with the spore, and then it can kill them. But they're like, not deadly enough. It doesn't kill them fast enough because mosquitoes reproduce really quickly. So they're like, where can I get a source of toxin that's going to make this even deadlier? And they're like, let's go to our friends, the spiders. But let's not stop there. What about scorpions too?
Wow.
This is how 28 days later is this like this is how it starts. Somebody has this great idea. Oh, we can make this toxin better. Yeah, no, that's
They blended a scorpion and spider venom into this fungus spore, and so now when it gets penetrates a mosquito shell, it definitely kills it much faster. There's no way this is hitting any sort of commercial viability because there's all sorts of risks about the spore causing horizontal gene transfer, which will cause like problems in other animals and stuff.
Well,
So,
yeah, this isn't a mosquito-specific repellent.
no,
Or
but
poison.
I'm going to bring up every study that says we know how to kill mosquitoes better onto this podcast.
All right.
We know how to kill mosquitoes better.
lasers.
That video is one of my favorite videos on the internet where they use lasers to shoot down mosquitoes. One of my favorite.
Was that a
things.
Bill Gates thing
No,
when he released all the mosquitoes into the hall?
no, I don't think he used lasers.
Okay.
Did he?
I don't know. Okay.
Bill Gates is the poster child of enemy of mosquito. I feel like they have
Good for him.
like in their like Legion of Doom, they have a poster of Bill Gates up.
Public enemy number one.
I believe so. One last one that Zach brought up. We have a launch tonight. NASA's launching something.
Hopefully, I'm excited.
Yeah, if the weather holds.
Yeah.
So you want to describe what the launch is doing?
I'm actually sort of confused exactly what they're solving, but they have some reason that they want to be able to inject gas into the upper atmosphere, and the way that they're testing this is by launching these canisters that have colorful and light up clouds.
Oh,
so
dude,
which
yes.
sounds awesome. Like
Yes.
I just want to see this, and it may just be like a Disneyland electric light parade kind of show,
Yeah.
but if you're somewhere, I think they said between, was it New Jersey? And,
Yeah, if you're on the New Jersey coast, which is
Yeah.
already a terrible place to be. So, like,
so yes,
you
look
need-
up
yeah.
and see the colorful clouds that NASA is throwing into the atmosphere.
So what they're doing is injecting some different elements like barium and strontium that will create these colored clouds in the ionosphere, which is a high up particular area in the atmosphere to study the wind patterns up there. And
Right.
so they'll be able to see how these clouds move.
Oh, that's cool.
And help them, and that'll help them detect particles from space better.
And if you think
understand the currents from there.
If you think the chemtrail guys are having a problem with,
right.
Wait for the colorful clouds coming in the sky. Yeah.
Oh my God, I didn't even think about that. I need to monitor Twitter as soon as this happens. Because like Twitter's become a place where anytime like a jet flies over San Francisco Bay Area, there's like a stream of people being like, why is there a jet flying over? Everyone gets nervous. What will happen when colored clouds hit the sky?
Absolutely. I mean, it's close encounters, right? Like this is.
That's what I'm thinking. The UFO community is going to go
huge,
bonkers.
huge.
This is an amazing opportunity. I never thought about that next level of viewing. Don't view the clouds, view the people viewing the clouds.
That's what it's about.
Oh, that is amazing.
It's like Danica taking pictures of Norm taking pictures. It's the same thing.
The VR Minute. Virtual reality this week.
Don't you love that theme?
I love it.
That's the best. So guess what, Oculus Rift owners? There was a new game announced and released on the same day last week. Came out of nowhere. Witchblood.
Had you heard about this at all?
No, nobody'd heard of it.
There might be a reason.
Well, no, actually, people like it, and it's a deal. It's like $8. It's on Oculus Home. It's a side scroller, 3D side scroller. God, the developer had a good term for this type of game, and I've forgotten it, but it's like a diorama style game where you've got your situation in front of you, and it feels like a real little playset.
But do I need VR to play it?
No, I imagine not. But that's true with Lucky's Tale and Blaze Rush, lots of games that are kind of like that. And it doesn't mean that there's not something realistic about watching it play out in front of you. But I'm with you. I'm with you. That's something that you should make a distinction between.
Yeah.
But for $8, it's probably worth checking out. I actually have not played it yet, but people who have on Reddit seem to like it. I think it's probably well priced.
Oh no!
What? Dude, that is not something we see in VR.
A resounding review. It's well priced.
That is a big deal.
No, I thought you meant in context because like a lot of VR games have been like $40, $50 that have
Exactly.
been worth like
Yeah.
15.
Look at Bridge Crew. I mean, it's
Yeah.
a great game that is not worth $50.
This is true.
Yeah.
All right. The best news of the week, and I'm telling you this having been to E3,
Yes.
is that Lone Echo not only has a release date of next month, but
Excited.
the multiplayer game, which they're now calling Echo Arena, will be free for a limited time. Now, obviously, this is an Oculus Studios game.
bundled
so
with the pre-order, right?
No, it's just free.
Free.
Oh.
Yeah, for everyone for a limited time. It's gotta, and yes, it's the way to do it because multiplayer games have a problem with the player base, especially when it's limited to Oculus Rift. But getting it out there for everybody is going to increase that as much as possible.
Is this a sign of confidence of being like this is it?
No,
this is the game
Well,
we want people to play.
It's a sign of confidence for me because this is the game I'm most been looking forward to, particularly this multiplayer sports game. What is? I don't remember how many people are on either side, but it's a sports game where you've got like 5 people on either team, and you come out into this 0G chamber, not unlike the battle room or whatever it's called from Ender's Game, and you have a frisbee. It's in the middle, and you are all going towards the center, and you grab it, you try to throw it into the opposing team's goal, but it's 0G. Completely free motion. You're grabbing onto these structures in the middle and you're throwing yourself off of them and then grabbing the next wall. You can grab onto people and they can't tell that you've grabbed onto them, and then you can punch them in the head and you stun them for a few seconds. And you're passing the disc to your teammates and you're talking to them and collaborating and trying to achieve these goals. Honestly, I played it at OC3. I did not get a chance to play it at E3, disappointingly. But I was buzzing. I was a convert. I said, this is like they figured out how to do free motion in a comfortable way.
Well, now, have you played I'm sure you have, the space station demo?
The
Yeah.
ISS thing?
The ISS thing?
Yeah, and
So that's a similar free motion, but I
is.
can't play that for more than like 5 minutes without getting nauseous.
And I'll be curious to see how you handle this Echo Arena, because I did not have the problem in Echo Arena, whereas I also have a problem with the
All
space
right.
station.
So they've tweaked something.
Well, it's like you're not as confined for one. Like you're not in a tunnel,
That helps.
and you can grab anything. Whereas I felt like things were not interactive in the same way that I expected. There's a lot of detail in the environment in the space station. This is just flat shaded objects that you're grabbing. Much more open space. So there's a lot more time after you let go to drift and grab the next thing. But man, awesome, fun game. I'm excited. This is going to be free for a limited time, so make sure to get it. You can actually pre-order now Lone Echo for $35, which is well priced. The single-player game also looks great. We've only played the first 10 minutes, but it's set in a space station. You're a robot, and you're protecting the humans. Lots of also the same style of movement.
And this is a precedent that we used to do all the time, like back in the early 2000s and 90s, like having a demo that you could play before you bought the game, like that's what enticed people to play it. And I think this is great for VR.
Shareware.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the story of Doom.
exactly.
Wolfenstein and whatnot. Also, in sync with this announcement for Echo Arena is an announcement from is it Intel? Yeah, Intel and Oculus. They have announced a $200,000 VR Challenger League. So there's now going to be an esports league.
VR esports.
Yes, for Echo Arena and what is that? What's that game? What's the spellcasting game that came out also free for the Oculus Rift? You know what I'm talking about?
Unspoken.
Unspoken. Yeah. So those two games, there will be leagues who can play and compete for money. You can now be a VR esports champion.
Are you also announcing that you're leaving Tested to pursue a VR esports career today?
No, I'm not gonna do that because I'm gonna be more of a ninja about it. I want to get good at Echo Arena. I really do. That's gonna be a fun one.
I feel like it's going to be the Rocket League for VR.
But have they solved, again, being somebody who gets motion sick,
We have to
they solved
find
the
it.
viewer non-barfing problem?
I'm telling you, like after I played it, that's what.
But maybe playing. I'm just wondering, like, what is it? How does it feel on the sidelines?
And I'll be curious to see what the wide reaction is to this.
Yeah.
Because there's no way to play this game teleportation. Like it is free motion.
Right.
But they take so many careful steps. And after I finished playing it, I was so excited that someone had figured this out that like Michael Abrash came and sat at our table. And I was like, have you played this game? He's like, no, I haven't played it yet. Tell me, why do you think it was successful and not being nauseating? And we sort of talked about it. I was so excited. Like, I mean, I think the fact that there's no acceleration and deceleration for one. The speed at which you move your arm when you're throwing yourself is the speed at which you travel. They cap it so you can't go too fast. But like as soon as you let go, it's instant motion, and then when you go to stop, it's instant stop.
Right.
I think that slowing and that ramp up and down, that's what kills you. There's also no rotational forced changes at all, ever. So in order to turn around, you have to turn your body around.
Well, which is dangerous for people that have only a 2-camera system. I found that like that's the one time that my system kind of glitches, and when the system glitches, like my brain goes, holy moly, like something is wrong. The earth is broken, and that's just throws me into instant nausea. So I'm worried that as I get wrapped in my cable, because we don't have wireless yet, that's gonna throw me off, and then I'm gonna be Hurl City.
Yeah, the only places I played it is in the controlled environment. So you're right.
So
I'll be very curious about that.
Yeah,
I'm very curious what the esports competitors look like, because there's always been this conversation about esports competitors are athletes just like everyone. Like this is a physical game that has, actual fatigue is going to be a part of. No, but I mean, you are going to be moving around a lot more than in Dota 2 and League of Legends.
Fair enough, but I mean, like until we have like weighted hand controllers or something that actually puts some real, force into the game.
Fair enough. But I wouldn't be surprised if people like come up with really dynamic, physical movements to enact something in the game.
Yeah, maybe.
The only game that I think really has a chance at being a workout is Sprint Vector so far.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
I thought the climb could too, because it like really emotionally taxes
you're sweating because you're nervous to fall, but
I don't know if you're getting a cardio workout, though.
Yeah, this is true.
Sprint Vector, you get a cardio workout. Like, I played that for the second time now at E3. This is a game that has you literally running, with your arms, and you're racing someone else. So there's this, this adrenaline rush, and you're constantly jumping, and you're trying to fly, and you're now shooting power-ups, which is an addition that they've made. So you have this slowdown feature where you could fire a pellet into the ground and it explodes into a bubble. And if your opponent passes through that, they slow down. And you're climbing walls just like in Climby. And it's very much like you fling yourself, and it's not 0G, but it's low G. And you float up, and then you grab other things, and you're running some more. Both times I played that, I've needed water afterwards, and my hands are doing this number.
Wow.
So that's definitely a workout. I could see that happening. And that is one of the games that played at E3. It's coming out this fall. They don't have it, or they don't have a release date yet.
All right, other VR news?
Sony announced 5 VR games. Unfortunately,
exclusives.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Exclusive to
I
PSVR?
know.
We'll see. Hopefully
Let's
some of
see.
them are timed.
Yeah.
I unfortunately did not get a chance to play any of them, but one of them will use the PS Aim, which is a game that came out for Farpoint recently, which Norm and I are big fans of. It's the gun that's completely
Really, though?
self-contained.
I mean, it just feels like a thing that's going to gather dust.
I was gonna say, can I just tie my Move controller to the Nerf gun and call it a day?
No, because it has controls
Can I
on it.
3D print it?
I wish, but it has controls on it. Like
Yeah.
initially, I thought it was just going to be a plastic gun with a Move controller shoved into it. Like you do that with your Move controller, but no, it's a real whole thing with all the controls on it, and it's cool. The new game is called Bravo Team. It's more of a modern day shooter. So if you do happen to have bought Farpoint, you're hoping that gun will have another use. It will through this game called Bravo Team. There's also Moss, which looks like another one of these diorama games, but with a mouse who is a cute little fighter. I think it has a sword. And from what I understand, you don't play as the mouse. You play as a third party who's assisting the mouse. I could be wrong about that, but that was the impression that I got.
Is that you're the mouse's assistant?
You might be the mouse.
The assistant to the regional manager?
Yeah, right, exactly. And then there's the Impatient, which has a vibe a lot like what's the the Oculus Studios game?
Wilson Hart?
Wilson's Heart, yeah, exactly. Has a sort of horror-ish vibe like that. Another one called
I don't need more scares in my world.
No, I don't either. I have a hard time with the VR games, although Wilson's Heart walked that line well.
Yeah.
I don't know if I trust PlayStation quite as well to walk that line. They might scare me for real. Star Child's another one, as well as, who saw this coming? Final Fantasy Monsters of the Deep. It's a fishing simulator, people. It's a Final Fantasy fishing game
There's an audience.
in VR. So go figure. Maybe that's going to be the sleeper hit. Maybe everyone's going to be talking about
Esports
Final Fantasy fishing.
fishing.
Display Link showed off a dual 4K wireless streaming solution. So it's not who needs it yet, but this is now, we are future proof.
Yeah. More bandwidth.
Yeah. it's
Have
a
you
lot of
watched
bandwidth.
any VR streams?
What do you mean?
Like people streaming VR games? Is it watchable?
That's not what I'm talking about, though.
No,
Okay, you know that.
Oh, got it. I know what you mean now.
This is a tetherless solution. This is
Got it,
converting
got
your
it.
HDMI
Never mind.
cable to wireless streaming.
But to answer your question, in our house, when we play VR, it's a family affair, and we have a screen so that you can actually see the feed that's happening for the people that aren't wearing the headset, and it's a total barfarama. When you don't have control of your own head, it's a tough one. So,
All right.
Ubisoft, they came out with some interesting VR games recently. Bridge Crew, probably chief among them.
Yes.
We all enjoyed that. You
I
played that
did.
some, right?
You
you enjoyed that?
You talked me into it. I went home and bought it that night.
What do you think?
I love it. It's super fun. I feel.
I think it has a limited playtime.
Oh, totally.
But it's a lot of fun
Yeah.
as a co-op VR game.
It is not worth the money, but I get to pilot a starship. That is an experience that I have not had before.
And live in that universe. Okay, but
So
Ubisoft.
as far as I know, they have no big announcements VR related at E3, but they did have one that they teased. It's called Space Junkies. All they released are 3 screenshots from it, but it's worth keeping an eye on. It looks like Lone Echo, but first-person shooter.
Oh,
So
interesting.
in outer space, you are PvP against other people. And I was a believer, having played the Lone Echo, that this will be a subgenre, that the 0G locomotion works so well and reducing nausea that it will just be like it will be the Doom prototype that everybody follows.
Yeah, because first-person shooter doesn't translate well, so you need some locomotion that's not, teleport.
Yeah.
This kind of solves it, though I don't see enough difference to make it like super compelling. Like, yeah, going around in zero G is fun, but my feet are on the ground.
The world has to be small too.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see. Maybe.
Yeah,
maybe.
You play Lone Echo and see what you think. You're right.
Yeah.
Lone Echo, you are constrained. Like, you have a sphere that you're in. So we'll see what that's like. But the graphics for, I think these are doctored screenshots. But in any case, I'm excited for the game. Keep your eye on it.
Now on to the biggest VR story of the week, or the weirdest looking one.
And what's fun. Okay, so go ahead and describe it.
I just saw the video.
That's all anybody saw.
Okay.
Even HTC.
I saw the video for Mario Kart in VR, and it starts with people sitting in chairs wearing Vives that have like steering wheels in them. And so they're playing Mario Kart in a
simulator.
That has that point of view. And then where I sort of like screamed at my monitor is when they started using the weapons, and they use the wand and have to lift up the shell off to their side above their head and throw it.
Oh, I didn't catch
using their arm.
That's good.
Yeah.
So this is in a location-based VR
arcade,
exactly, in Tokyo, called VR Zone. It's a Bandai Namco's VR Zone, and the Mario Kart is just one portion of it, and it's a short part of the trailer, but it's the part that caught everyone's attention.
But is it sanctioned by Nintendo, or is this somebody just using the assets?
It's gotta be, dude. I mean,
does it?
Yeah, it's gotta be. It's in Japan, but I'm just saying lawsuits are much easier. If you're in the same
I don't
country.
know.
But what it isn't sanctioned by is HTC. Because I talked to them at E3, and they're totally cool with it. Like, they love this.
Okay.
But they weren't partners. Like,
they
had no idea. So they were as impressed by it as anybody else.
I mean, I'm instantaneously wanted to do this.
Of course.
Like, that was amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's super janked up.
That's the dream.
And who cares?
Well, if there's enough sort of infrastructure around you, somebody to hand you a new shell every time you have it, or like the missile or whatever, sure, I'll do that. That sounds great. But I mean, it's a one-time thing.
But the Vive is also perfect for it, because with the room scale, like, you actually can turn around.
Well, except you're sitting in a chair.
No, but can you imagine like actually turning your head behind you to try to see who's behind you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Right? That'd be a great mechanic.
Absolutely. This is one step away from the dream of incorporating augmented reality Mario Kart into a real go-kart.
Yes.
Like that's the next step. That's the dream. But this is halfway there.
I don't know. You want to talk about nausea? Like a go-kart, just a real go-kart with you in it starts spinning around.
No, it wouldn't spin around. No, augmented reality. Like, augmented reality solves the nausea problem inherently. That's
but if you actually put in the mechanic of the car spinning when you get hit by a shell.
The banana peel.
Right.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, like another wheel comes down. And
I love
you to
it.
spin
We
around.
could build one. Maybe there's a one-day build.
Yeah, 1 week. That does sound fun. Let me quickly just talk about a couple games I saw at E3. I don't want to go through the whole list because we'll probably do that on projections. And the short future soon as Norm is back. But there's a game you probably haven't heard of called Vindicta that I want to give a shout out to. It's a small team, 10 people. They've been working on this game for 6 months, and they've done a really nice job on it. It's a co-op, or it's going to be co-op soon, I should say. That's on their design plan, but they have single player working. It's a first-person shooter, and it's an interesting locomotion mechanic that you've seen in Climby and some tech demos where you hold the buttons and you do this number and you move forward. But the cool thing is that you can do like little movements to move slowly or big movements to move fast, and you're ducking and rising, but you're shooting, and it's cool because you can control which way you're walking based on whether you want. It's in how you want. So it can be which way you're looking, or it can be which way your controllers are facing. And that's my preferred method, so that when you do this, you can look over here at the bad guys and walk the other way. But lots of interesting uses of VR where you're the same kind of thing as like Rec Room, where you're a bunch of bad guys and you're just trying to shoot him. But also there's ladders that you climb, and sometimes there's a bad guy at the top, and you have to holster your weapon when you climb the ladder. So you're climbing, peeking your head up, you're getting your weapon, you're firing off.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
And it's the graphics aren't blow away. It's not Doom, but they're good enough.
As we've talked about, graphics don't matter as much in VR.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for this game, and shout out to a small team that's producing something cool.
That's awesome.
Can you do a no-look shot then?
Absolutely,
That would be
couldn't you?
badass.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Like you can't do that in traditional 2D games. You gotta look. And I did play Doom VFR, which I was excited to play. Finally has a name, VFR. No one knows what the F stands for.
Well, it's like the BFG.
You think?
Maybe.
It's cool. It's the only of the 3 Bethesda games that's made from the ground up for VR. They also obviously have Fallout VR and Skyrim VR.
Which feel like a patch to me.
Yeah. That Skyrim thing's like, we need more microtransactions in Skyrim, so we'll add VR to it.
I played all 3, and I will say that the scale is weird in Fallout and Skyrim in a way that it wouldn't be if it was ground up.
Yeah.
Especially Skyrim, and I don't know if this is... I haven't seen anyone else mention this, and it shocked me because the scale is whack. It's like I don't know if it's if the camera is zoomed in because the whole world feels compressed in Z. So it's like things that are 20 feet in the distance feel almost two-dimensional, and then as I walk towards them, they expand, and everything is also somewhat shrunken in the distance. So that
like some weird FOV
yes,
alignment,
right, and which is like converting traditional games to VR has a problem with scale.
Yeah.
And so I think this is just an inherent issue. Or it's a factor of trying to compress Skyrim into the PSVR memory space. I don't know. In any case, it's weird. So like a doorway looks like a mouse hole, and as I walk towards it, it does expand, and I say, oh, I can fit through that.
Is it a fog of war kind of thing where that's just the choice they made to sort of minimize the RAM footprint because they can't show this big, vast, and also render it at the same time?
Yeah.
So they do this different technique, or I don't know. Maybe it's...
I have no idea. It certainly, I think in the end, it's probably a rendering issue.
Okay.
With a world like Skyrim, that's so critical, though, because you'll notice it because that's
It's
sort of the
huge.
point of
Yeah.
Skyrim.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's Skyrim. It's an immense game, and and now you can explore that in VR, which is amazing. Same thing with Fallout, but it'll be an interesting question to answer whether or not people want to spend that much time in VR. For me, I enjoy the shorter experiences.
Yes.
Hour and a half is about a limit.
Right, like the quest in Rec Room or the mission in Bridge Crew. I want to be in, and then I want to be finished and take it off. Having a 40, 80-hour game like Fallout, I don't know. I really don't know, and I'll be curious to see. I'm sure there are people that
This is
want
going
it.
to test your stamina.
Yeah, and they're slower paced games.
But back to Doom.
Back to Doom.
Well, Fallout also, Pip-Boy, kind of genius. You just do this. Like, and then you
Yeah,
expect
that
me
makes
to Pip-Boy.
sense.
So they made a lot of good choices, and Skyrim is completely frame rate smooth as butter. So that they got that
But
going for it.
it is a 6-year-old game.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they should be able to.
Mm-hmm. And that lends itself well to the current VR tech because it's this low res by default.
Yep.
Doom VFR, it's fast paced, man, and those monsters are in your face. And the locomotion, I think, is well done. A lot of people are concerned that it wasn't free walking. That there's 2 different ways of moving around the world. You can teleport by aiming. It's Vive. They're doing Vive. They're saying it's a HTC Vive game. I believe that they will support Oculus Rift, but everything's demoed on Vive. So you press the touchpad in the center, the world goes bullet time, and you teleport. You get an arcing teleportation node, and when you let go, you warp there. But the other way to move around is by tapping the touchpad in various directions, which causes you to like zap strafe.
And that doesn't make you feel weird?
No. For whatever reason, I'm sure they figured out the timing that it feels comfortable, but it's not a blink. It's not like a teleportation thing. Like you actually zap strafe and then immediately stop.
So it feels like a strafe.
It totally feels like a strafe, and it's basically like walking. I think people who are concerned that this isn't a free motion game temper those concerns so you play it because there's no cooldown. You just keep tapping and you zip, 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 zip through the world.
Okay, so you can go fast.
Just like you would in the real game, yeah. So
Okay, so it's limited by your speed, kind of like what your average speed would be.
Kind of. I imagine so.
Yeah.
Like that's a dial that they have to adjust.
Right.
Teleportation, obviously, you're moving faster. So I'm not sure how that balance works out. The weird thing is you can zip strafe off a ledge. So that's not entirely fair. Like if I'm a good distance away from the ledge, but just one gets me off, then I'm dead. And there's no way for me to really know. Like I would have to teleport to the edge in order to be safe. Sometimes it's just not time to figure that out.
Yeah. Now my brain wants me to also kind of combine the movement in the room with it. So I want to do this.
Yeah.
And then what I end up on these kind of games, I end up sort of like shifting. So then all of a sudden I'm hitting a wall or I'm doing something, then I'm like, I can't figure out how to get out of the grid. I get stuck in the
real world.
The real world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know
So
what you mean.
it's a tricky thing to solve.
But
Do they tone down the doomness of this? Or is it pretty
Scary.
Yeah.
No, it's all in your face. Yeah, absolutely.
Damn.
But visually, this is up there with the best looking games I've ever seen in VR. I mean, just like the environments, the monsters, stunning and a smooth frame rate.
But you also played them on probably the best machine you can get.
I'm sure whatever they were demoing was a great machine. But they brought back the telefrag, which is great. So you go in the bullet time, you teleport right onto an enemy. That's how you get your glory kill, which in Doom is how you regen your ammo and stuff. And that's all satisfying. It's just very, very kinetic. Like I think they did a good job of translating the Doom experience to VR. I'm curious to see if they adjust this strafe thing so that you can't fall off a cliff unless maybe you double tap or something like that. But yeah,
I'm a little no thank you because of how terrifying it's going to be.
Yeah, but it's not like there's jump scares. Like you know what you're signing up for, and you can stay back. If
They're just called scares.
Yeah,
like,
regular scares.
Fair enough.
So there are other games we'll talk about on projections soon enough.
All right. Let's go into what we've been testing.
Okay.
Testing this week. Hey, what have you guys been testing?
Jeremy's tested every VR game known to man this week.
Yep, pretty much.
Anything else on your agenda?
Gosh, I always think of this segment after the show, like what I should have said. I don't know. No, I can't think
What's
of
your
anything.
latest printer bot?
Don't bring up the
Oh,
printer
sorry.
Printerbot is not.
I just
doing
don't
well.
think anybody cares, and I get so upset about it. I just don't feel like
I hit a sore spot.
I just don't feel like my ire is really well needed here.
I don't know. As soon as you said I had to get out a Dremel and cut a hole in the side of my printer to upgrade it,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, that's trouble.
I've upgraded the printer bot to the G2. I finally got the board working.
Oh, that's
I
good.
got the G-code compatible. It's generally working. Half the time though, it's like I home my my head and it doesn't know. It's hit a switch and it's goes and does that. And now I'm just letting it do it. I'm like, break yourself. Do it.
You deserve it.
Give me a justification to get a different printer.
That is the opposite of the treat yourself, break yourself.
And I'm just kind of very frustrated by it. When it works, the new G2 board is fantastic. It sounds like a different printer. It prints twice as fast, and it's wonderful. I just wish that they had shipped.
Wait, it prints twice as fast?
Oh, it'll probably print 3 times as fast. Yeah, it's.
30... Is it just because you're limited by the cool off time of the filament, or is it just the rapids are faster?
No, that's never been a problem. Like your filament has. You're right. I mean,
that's the limit.
You want more fans, ideally.
Yeah.
But no, it happily prints at 100 millimeters a second. I could probably do 150.
Wow.
That's pretty fast.
Whereas before it was 50. That
Okay.
was sort of where the printer bots sort of were happy.
Got it.
But now it's just so buttery smooth. I love the sound of it. It's just and it's like one time the Z did that same thing. It just went into my bed and it was. It's like I don't understand why it's happening. It only happens sometimes.
Okay,
And
we're
blah,
not going to
blah,
ask
blah.
you about this for a little while so
Sorry.
you can recover. Zach, anything I'm sure there's a bunch of stuff.
I test all kinds of weird stuff, but that's
Yeah.
my job. So.
Yeah, but what's a fun, weird thing you've tested this week?
Oh, so I broke my welding mask last week and I had to go buy a new one. And it was it's funny, a lot of tools, there's sort of this whole, hierarchy of I can buy the super expensive one. And I most of the time do because tools something you should keep for a long time. But a welding mask, it's kind of it gets splatter from welding. And I'm I don't want to spend
All
that
right,
much.
I'm going to interrupt you right now.
Okay, interrupt
because
me.
you've chosen to talk about a welding mask when you could be talking about a CNC mill for which you had to rent a forklift.
Well, yeah, okay. I mean, I'm not testing. I'm done testing that. Yeah, no. So I get lots of things. I mean, that's part of my world of I get stuff. anyways, yeah, no, all right. So, well, yes, a couple months ago, I ordered from China. Kind of took this risk of, there were some reviews, but I'm like, all right, I'm just going to send a whole bunch of money, wire it over there with the hopes that this thing is going to arrive on a ship. And I bought a big CNC router. Handles a 4x8 sheet, actually of plywood, or actually this one has up to 8 inches thick. So I
What?
can. Yeah,
8 inches thick.
Yeah, like you could have a slab of so one of the things that I do is I build prototypes for products, and sometimes they want just a looks like thing, and so I need to do molding or plastics or casting, and it's really easy to take a design instead of 3D printing it, just directly make a mold, and then I can cast a really smooth looking shell or whatever it happens to be. So this is, and I had a smaller milling machine that I could kind of make things that are about the size of a shoebox. Sometimes I need something bigger. So it wasn't that much more to get the bigger one, and why not? So I bought this big, heavy thing. And in the CNC world, heavier is better. So less vibration, more sort of stability, and you kind of have this long chain of motion control, and it's like, okay, if you don't have mass out there, things will wiggle around and move, and that's kind of the difference between the really inexpensive ones and the bigger, more expensive ones, is just how much they weigh. So this one weighs about 4,000 pounds, and and I'm cheap, and it was like, I could hire a guy, or I could do it myself. So it was like my dad with his pickup truck and like a janky trailer that we kind of put together, and it was, really sketchy.
You went down to like the Port of Oakland?
I totally went down to the Port of Oakland and had to figure out who's the guy to talk to slip a few bucks to help us. It was this whole thing.
Really? You had to like palm somebody with like to help out?
Maybe. Yeah. Anyways, it was all
Allegedly.
legit. Allegedly. But no, it was this whole world. Like, I had no idea how to ship something big from overseas. Like, I ship little things all the time, but like this was a big thing, and like, who do you talk to? So there was all this learning curve of like, how do you do that? So I learned how to get something big and heavy from the Port of Oakland to my shop, and it was fun and exciting, and lots of like, I don't know if this forklift will lift this much weight. And
wow. And it turns out you can rent a forklift without any certification, although you happen to be certified.
Yeah, right. But yes, you call up the rental yard and say, "Can you send me a forklift?" And it will show up the next day. All these things you learn when you're just like, yeah, it's bizarre. But anyways, like, people that do this regularly know these things. But as I'm basically a glorified hobbyist. I've been doing it long enough to where I'm a professional at it, but I don't know any inherent knowledge that people that just kind of do it for fun. I just have done it a whole bunch, so I learn about this stuff all the time, new things. It's like, oh, you can rent that piece of equipment? Sure. So yes, I rented this, got it off, slid it around on dollies, and magically it all worked, and I turned it on, and I make stuff now. So
that's amazing.
It's super fun.
That'll be Simone's new series. Can I rent that?
Yeah, right.
Yes.
That's funny.
The answer is almost always going to be yes.
Yes, you can.
Yes, you can.
I have to come see this CNC. That sounds awesome.
Yeah. Maybe we can shoot some video out there. So
interesting.
There's some fun toys.
I did think of one quick thing.
Yeah.
So I have not mentioned this on the show, although Zach knows about it. I've been slowly tinkering with a Speak and Spell, which is the ultimate toy from 1978, often called the first personal computer, although I think probably it came out after the Apple I.
It's operated by a string. Let's not call it a personal computer.
This
seriously.
is a battery-powered thing.
Oh, this is the battery-powered one.
Yeah.
Okay.
By a string?
You're thinking, like, what does the dog say?
Yeah, what is that thing called?
Somebody will know.
You're talking about the arrow that spins around?
Yeah,
no,
what is
dude.
that thing called?
You don't know the Speak and Spell?
No, I do. I'm like, what is that other thing that I'm referring to called?
Yeah, it's that other thing. But no, Speak and Spell was the follow-up to the calculator that wasn't a calculator.
It talked.
But the calculator didn't. Like, the calculator...
No, but the Speak and Spell did. It was the first really talking thing.
It was the first solid-state talking toy from 1978, and it was like they developed this chip in order to produce this toy, and it became the chip that was used in arcade games throughout the early 80s, Star Wars and whatnot. And so I've gone deep on Speak and Spell. I've taken it apart. And I wanted to replace the innards and put it online and somehow make it a personal assistant. So I figured out how to make the same kind of sound voices that it uses. I always thought Speak and Spell was a speech synthesis machine that could say anything, and it's not. Like, it has a preset vocabulary. All of the words are pre-coded, like pre-encoded.
Oh.
And it's a fascinating form of encoding called linear something.
Predictive.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
that.
linear predictive coding.
There you go.
And it's fascinating. It's like it's the compression that they got in the 70s for voice, where it's still intelligible, and that was one of the requirements. It turns out, is for the speak and spell, words had to be intelligible out of context, because the thing says a word and you have to spell it out of context. There's no sentence. You can't get the the definition. You can't ask to use it in a sentence, so you have to understand it. And to do that with speech synthesis, anytime up until recently has been a trick. So they did it successfully in the 70s, and it's awesome. I think that there should be a documentary on the speak and spell while the engineers are still alive. They're all retired now, but it is a fascinating story. Anyway, I figured out how to interpret the keyboard, which is a switch matrix. No one had written that up. That's worth putting up there somewhere.
There you go.
So I know which pins are columns and rows. So I can read that. I might replace the circuit board with a microcontroller like the Photon, get it online. I just don't know what to do with it online.
It's a solution waiting for a problem.
It's kind of...
This is where our listeners come in.
Yeah,
Comment away.
What should a speak and spell really do? And my fear is I'm going to have to replace the speech codec with an actual like phoneme generator, which sounds crappy compared to the LPC stuff. But I'll probably have to have it say anything. I might just have it listen to me. I might put Watson in it, actually. IBM's...
Wow,
there's
yeah.
an API
Cool.
there's an API for that. And so that would be interesting, like to hold down, instead of like the say doing the say game, like you could talk to it and then it could talk back to you.
We could do that with Alexa too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that would be easier because I've done that before. Anyway, been tinkering with the speak and spell. It's such a cool toy, and I love getting deep into that. That's what I've been tinkering with.
Awesome. I've been testing out the Pico Brew, which is a tabletop home brewing system.
Are you brewing or drinking?
I am both.
It takes about a week, right?
Well, yeah. I
brew?
mean, you can't speed up yeast, so yeast are going to be yeast. I've been playing around with it. I'm on my second beer batch with it.
Oh, so you have drink in a batch.
Yes, I have, and
And you still can see.
yeah, I'm gonna do a video with Joey soon. Next time he's up, because we're both homebrewers, and we're actually gonna do a taste test with what the Pico Brew made versus the commercial version of what it's trying to recreate. Because they sell, like breweries sell in kits of like, just pop this in and make this beer. And so we're gonna do it side by side. It has limited. It takes, as I said weeks ago on the podcast, it takes the soul out of the brewing process, but it makes decent beer. So actually pretty good beer. And if you can tweak things in an interesting way with this, it could have a use. We'll see. I have a little bit more work to do on it.
When I cook a meal, it tastes better than if someone else cooked it. Is that true for beer?
Well, you just get more of it too.
Well, yeah, so it's a quantity thing?
Yeah, I mean, the one advantage Pico Brew has is like, I'm a 2-drinker household, me and my wife wife doesn't drink that much.
Okay.
And so
I'm glad you're not a 3-drinker household.
Making like 5 gallons of beer tends to be a little bit much. So this makes a smaller quantity.
Pico amount.
Yes.
Now, I know one of the big things is sterilization. Like, that's the big...
That's what it automates a lot.
So that's...
So it, like, steams out the little mini keg. It steams out the little hopper for stuff. You still have to do stuff manually because it can't clean out everything for you. So it does make that process easier. But, actually my biggest sort of complaint right now is while it's brewing, while it's making the wort, it's really loud. And so, like, it's designed to be countertop. But it's like
you don't want it in your kitchen.
Yeah, I don't want it anywhere near my kitchen because it's doing it for like 2.5 hours, and like it was almost divorce time last night while this thing was brewing. So, anyways, but I have way more to go on it and messing around. So hopefully a review will be up soon. I think that about does it for us today. Zach, thank you so much for coming in.
My pleasure. Super fun.
Where can people find you on the internet?
Oh, I'm at buildcoolstuff.com is my website.
Greatest
I build
URL
cool stuff.
ever.
Yeah, it works.
Awesome. And are you on like the Twitters or anywhere else?
I have had a Twitter account since like 2008. I think I have one tweet.
Oh, so tweet at you.
Yeah,
everyone tweeted Zach.
R. Like that's I got my own name with an R at the end.
Z-A-C-H.
ZACH. Yeah, you can totally tweet at me. Have fun.
Jeremy at Jareware.
That's correct.
Where else can people? What are you?
That's pretty good. Let's just stick with that.
All right.
Buy a game frame.
Oh, buy a game frame.
Yeah.
That's always a good idea.
Yeah.
When Norm didn't have an ad, what he was supposed to give me ads for last week, I was just going to insert ads for Game Frame. But then he finally gave them to me.
Are you
at the
looking
11th
for
hour.
a new way to decorate your office? Think about the Game Frame.
Where can people find you, Kishore?
I'm at Science Quiche on the Twitters. You can find me next Monday night talking to the inventor of CRISPR-Cas9 on stage here in San Francisco. Sweet. I think what's coming up on Tested, I think there's some videos.
Yeah.
That's a stretch.
You know, next week is a full takeover of the site by the Maker Week, right?
Oh, yeah, it's Nation of Makers. So Adam's on the board of this new nonprofit, and there's going to be a lot of personal tales of how making has affected lives, featuring a number of personalities here on Tested. I think episode 2 of Science and Progress, my science show, goes up for premium members today.
All right.
Cool.
Question mark, shrug.
Yep.
And I think Norm's back next week. So
That's
fun
right.
is over, people.
Well, he literally gets in podcast day, so fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
We'll see if he's
Maybe one more
hungover
week.
from his
Yeah.
honeymoon.
All right, do we have an outro this week?
Hi there, I didn't see you.
Tested.
It was very much a Star Trek flying by spaceship experience.
Oh, because of the
experience.
doors.
You press the button on the doors and the doors go choo.
And then suddenly, the Enterprise D's bridge.
That's a cue for us to restart.
Tested.
See ya.
Shout out my music. Can you know that?
it.